gentlemen, what the world has been waiting for, the world needs now, the one, the only, amazing, original, Johnny Blaze. Often imitated, but never duplicated. There's Johnny.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to the original Johnny Blaze Show. It's always great to be here as I blaze right in with my karate kick. Let's have a blazing hot fun time. A woman once told me my husband is like a Swiss Army knife. He appears to lead many functions, but mainly just opens bottles. A man can fall in love with a good-looking woman at one sight, but a woman requires a second sight. First, she looks at the man, and then she looks at what's in his wallet. A wife came home from a beauty parlor, and she asked her husband, "Well, what do you think?" And the husband replied, "Well, at least you gave it an honest try." A man runs into a crowded bar with a loaded pistol, and he says, "I'm going to shoot any man here who's been sleeping with my wife." The bartender replies, "I'm sorry, pal, but you didn't bring enough bullets." Well, why do couples hold hands during the wedding ceremony? The same reason why boxers shake hands before the first round begins. Earthquakes, tornadoes, and ex-wives. Three things that eventually take your house away. A genie appears before a married man. "I grant you 3 wishes. Well, whatever you ask for, your wife will get double." Well, the man asks for a new car. His wife gets 2 cars. Then he asks for a new house, and his wife gets 2 houses. "What would you like for your 3rd wish?" the genie asked. "I want a hooker to beat me half to death and steal half my stuff." A wife sent a text message to her husband. "I just heard on the news that the police found a rotten, decayed corpse behind a liquor store under a pile of lotto tickets and porno mags. Please send me a text so I know you're still alive." We have a blazing hot fun show with a special guest. She is a multi-talented singer, composer, producer, model, musician, actress, and director. Please give a big warm welcome and say hello to the one and only Emily E. Fink.
Yes.
Hi, welcome to the amazing original Johnny Blaze Show.
Thank you. Good
I can hardly hear you. Can you speak up a little bit, Emily E. Fink?
Yes, let me turn up my microphone a little bit. Is that any better?
Yes, that's much better. I want to really hear you, of course.
Yes.
Well, you're looking great. You have a beautiful smile.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm really glad that you're on the show. Anyway, I want to say, everybody has their own unique story. Please give me a rundown, Emily E. Fink, of your background. How did you get started in entertainment? Where are you from? Give me the whole rundown, the whole scoop.
Well, I'll try and give you the short version of that. I'm from Lake Placid, Florida, and I started in music specifically. We'll talk about that. When I was 6, I started playing guitar. When I was 8, I started playing the violin. When I was 10, I started playing the piano. And when I was 15, I decided that I wanted to pursue singing, and I started getting voice lessons. When I was 17, I decided to seriously pursue and train in opera. And when I was 18, I started writing original music. And when I was 20, I started recording those songs. And I've been doing that for the past 2 years, along with a lot of other things. But yeah, that's kind of how I, sort of got into it.
That's really something. You started at such a young age, Emily Fink.
Yeah. My sister and I, we went to our mom one day and we just said, we want to take music lessons. And I was 6, my sister was 8, and we just had a love for it right from the start. And she told us, well, if you're going to do it, you have to practice and you have to be committed for at least 2 years. And she thought that we wouldn't want to do it after 2 years. She thought that it'd be too much work, we'd give it up. And we just loved it so much, we just wanted to continue, and we've been doing it ever since.
Wow, so you played a multitude of instruments. You played, violin and piano?
Piano and guitar.
Yeah. And guitar, great, like lead and rhythm, a little everything.
I prefer playing rhythm guitar. I've played a little bit of lead, but I play, acoustic guitar, not a whole lot of electric guitar, so mostly just rhythm.
And you took lessons on all these instruments, and also even with your voice?
Yes, yeah, right from the start. My mom, my sister and I were homeschooled, so my mom is very involved in our education, as you can imagine, and she just wanted to make sure that if we were going to do it, that we did it right, and so we got lessons right from the start.
That's wonderful. It really is. And so you have a voice teacher apparently that you've been taking lessons from and continue.
I do, yes. Yeah, I get vocal coaching with Craig Wick in Jupiter, Florida, and I've been with him for 6 years now, and I absolutely love him. I never want to have anybody else.
What's there about him that you love? He's just his personality, the way he teaches you?
Yeah, that we connect very well. We have a lot of similarities, but more than that, he's just an incredible instructor and coach, and he's extremely knowledgeable, and I love his approach to how he teaches voice. It's sort of, a very organic approach, very natural, letting the voice do what it wants to do naturally, not forcing anything, and just seeing where your natural instrument, what your natural instrument is. I started out as a soprano, when I was younger, and just a couple of years ago, back in 2020, my voice changed to a mezzo soprano, and I'm just so incredibly grateful. I feel very blessed that I had him as my vocal coach going through that, because he's also a vocal therapist, and we were able to sort of work through the transition from being a soprano to a mezzo soprano. My voice dropped 3 half steps, which was, kind of a big deal for me being 20. I'm thinking I'm already set with how my voice is going to be, but, just took our time working through it and relearning the instrument as it was now. And he was just amazing.
So your voice dropped. It didn't increase and get higher. It dropped as a mezzo soprano.
Yeah, I just had a very late in life voice change. Even women's voices change, going through puberty. About 16 or 17 is when you kind of expect the female voice to make its final voice change. The voice continues to mature until, for women, it's until they're about 26. For men, it's in their early 30s. It continues to mature. But for women, for young, girls, the voice change of, your voice deepening or whatever it's going to do normally happens between about 15 to 17. And mine just, I guess, didn't do that until I was about 20. So yeah, my voice just kind of suddenly dropped 3 half steps, and I went from being a soprano to a mezzo soprano.
I see. Well, that's okay. You do have a very powerful. I've listened to your a lot of your music videos. It looks like you do a lot of originals. We do some. A lot of cover songs, excuse me, but you do some originals also. But you do have a very powerful voice. You can belt the song out, hold it out really well, and you have a great vibrato.
Thank you.
So that's something to be proud of. Not just anybody can do that. You've done opera. Describe to me about your operatic experiences. Where did you perform at? And also, you probably have some people who inspired you in opera, like people like Pavarotti, Enrico Caruso, Mario Lanza,
Yeah. Well, to answer your first question, I don't have a lot of work in opera, like on the stage so far. I'm only 22. Woman's voice, as I said, doesn't fully mature until they're about 26. And because I just recently went through that voice change only 2 years ago, my vocal coach has been very careful with, what I've been doing. When I was a soprano, it was definitely something that I was starting to look at when I was about 19 or 20 of, ways that I could pursue opera. But then when my voice change happened, it was just kind of like, let's just take this slow and see how your voice adjusts to this. And it's definitely been about 2 years of adjusting both my voice, finding where it was at, and me getting used to where it's at. So I haven't been able to do anything, with an opera company, but it's definitely something that I feel ready to start pursuing again. But as far as inspirations in the opera world go, right now, my 2 biggest inspirations, and these were different when I was a soprano, but my 2 biggest inspirations right now are Marilyn Horne and Cecilia Bartoli. I adore Cecilia Bartoli, and she's incredible, and she definitely inspires a lot of the work that I do. I'm actually a lyric coloratura mezzo-soprano, so a lot of the coloratura work that I do, a lot of the runs and articulations that I do, I look to Cecilia and to kind of study what she does and how she does it to help me.
What about some of these opera? There was a Sydney and there was a Metropolitan Opera. Did you ever have that experience? I mean, not now, but before you were mezzo soprano. Did you have involved in any experiences like that before?
Yes, I sang at Carnegie Hall and Sydney Opera House. That was with the Honors Performance Series. It was a young adult choir that they auditioned for from people from all over the world from 18 to 25. And I did that 2 years, 2018 and 2019. 2018 was in Carnegie Hall and 2019 was in Sydney Opera House. So yes, I have performed in those venues, not as a soloist, but with a choir.
That must have been quite a rewarding experience. It must have been a lot of fun.
Yes, it was definitely a lot of fun. I have missed not being able to do that for the last couple of years, but it was very rewarding just to be in those places. Is extremely inspirational, for somebody of, what I want to pursue and, as a creative person. And I adore history. I love history. I always have, learning about it. History is very inspirational to me. And to be in those places with such amazing stories, and it was very surreal when it happened.
Do you have any stories that you could share with, about performing over there, or any special performances in general, even besides opera, but in general, any happy memories of performances that you remember?
Oh, I have many happy memories. I've been performing since I was young. And every single one is very different. And this may not be the most interesting answer, but they just are. All of my memories of performing are very special to me, and each one is just so different. It would be hard to pick one, but if I had a little time to think about it, I could probably tell you some stories, but none come to mind at the moment.
Well, maybe it'll come back when you least. That's usually the way it works. When you're trying, it's very trying and can't hard time remember. But
yeah.
when you don't try so hard, then it pops right back, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that. That's happened to me before. Anyway, the singing. I know I took singing lessons myself, so I know there's breathing techniques. You got to go up and down the scales and be able to sing with using your diaphragm and not using your throat. It does take practice, like anything.
Actually, I don't do a whole lot of that. As I said, my vocal coach takes a very organic approach. And in one of the first couple of lessons that I had with him when I was about 16, he was evaluating, where I was already with my voice to know how to, teach me, to progress. And it was maybe like the second or third lesson, he actually complimented me on my breathing, because the breathing when you're singing is actually supposed to be very natural. It's not supposed to be that much different. You actually don't want to push air, and especially the higher you go, the more you push, the harder it will be to hit those notes, and you have to be very light. And so he actually told me, you're breathing just fine. You breathe, because I hadn't been taught incorrectly on how to breathe. So I was just breathing, as I normally did. He said, you just let the breath come in and then you sing, and you're not breathy, so there's not too much air coming out. But that's not something, if you are breathy, that you actually control the breath. You have to find what's wrong with the voice that is allowing too much breath to come out. And a lot of times that's just strengthening certain parts of the voice. So it's really just, as I said, letting the body do what it does naturally. Singing is actually very natural, especially the way that I sing. I sing classically, and that's a very natural form of singing. That's kind of what the voice tends to want to do automatically. Other styles of singing are a little different and require a little bit more manipulation of the voice and, your body. But classical singing, there's definitely, getting into some very advanced singing like coloratura with the articulations and the runs and staccatos. There's definitely techniques that you have to be able to do, and a lot of practice that goes into those. But that's more to do with just technique as opposed to, manipulating the body in some way.
Well, you do sound very natural. It doesn't sound forced at all. It sounds extreme. This is something, I think this is a talent and a gift that you just naturally have. And if you have it, then you work with it and just embellish upon it, make it better. Yeah,
well, that's what I've been told, and I'm, very flattered for people that have said that. And I suppose, that it's that. But when I was taking with my instructor, for the first about year, I had different ideas of what I wanted to sing, more along the lines of musical theater, maybe like Christian contemporary. But I had a love for the theater, always have. I just adore live theater. And I was wanting to pursue more of a career in musical theater. And one day, just sort of randomly, my vocal coach mentioned something about me having a very natural voice for classical music. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah, it would be kind of a shame to waste that on musical theater. And I said, oh, And it was something that I had never really thought about before, that, voices can be suited for different things. I just thought, if you learn how to sing, you learn how to sing, and you can sing all different types of things, which is partially true. But I think there are some voices that are just naturally more suited. You look at Barbara Streisand and the way she sang, and with a style called belting, it was just something that was very natural to her, and she created a whole new phenomena. And so there are definitely voices that are more suited towards different types of singing. And when he said that, it made me seriously consider. I had always loved classical music, having grown up played, the violin and the piano classically, but I had never considered it as a career. And so when he said that, I just decided to embrace what I had naturally been given and to grow it from there.
Well, was that what you prefer mostly? Okay, musical theater, I'm sure, is interesting. You probably had some interesting experiences in musical theater. And what about classical music too? What do you, as far as music goes, is that your favorite classical, or do you like any other kinds of music, like folk or pop or rock or blues or gospel, or, there's all kinds of.
I enjoy listening to quite a range of music. I prefer more like music from the early 20th century, so maybe from like 1920 to 1940. That's kind of my favorite time frame of music to listen to, but I do lean more towards performing in a more classical range of music. But to listen to, I prefer things with lyrics. So I like more pop, like the vintage pop from the early 20th century, about into maybe the 70s. I like some things by the Bee Gees and Billy Joel, but, Bing Crosby, Dean Martin, they're my favorites.
And then and Al Jolson, I think you liked him too, right?
I did, yeah. I did used his song in one of my videos.
Right. Well, yeah. What's a typical day then, as far as when you create your own songs and also even music videos? Tell me what's involved and what's a typical day of doing this. You're doing all that. You're creating it and you're recording it and you're performing.
Yeah. Well, I don't really have a typical day because my work varies so much, depending on what project that I'm working on. But I suppose on an average day, or just say, like with my past song release, I was working between 16 and 18-hour days getting ready for that for about 2 months, because I take care of everything on the back end. Back in November, I was recording the song. In January, I was mixing it. And then in February, started everything on the back end to distribute it and market it. And honestly, that's the work that I probably least like, is all the marketing. It's very necessary, and it's a lot of work. I would much prefer to be creating something. But so yeah, it just really depends. If I'm getting ready to record, it's just a lot of going over sheet music and finalizing scores, making sure that I'm in contact with my musicians and the studio and prepping things for that. If it's after a recording, then it's just long days of me sitting at the computer mixing and fine-tuning tracks and, doing things like that. And then there's always emails to answer. There's social media posts to be put up. I have a subscription-based site on my website, for some of my followers to be on, and I have a forum in there, and I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of writing of short stories, and I'm getting into writing a novel right now. And I write songs, and there's always practice to be done. I teach music. There's just on any given day, it can be any number of things to do.
You're an Emily E. Fink of all trades. I mean, you name it, you do it.
Not necessarily by choice, but definitely out of necessity.
I mean, there's only so much time in a day. I mean, you're able to do all that. I mean, I admire that. That's really something. That you dropped out of college, I understand, apparently, to do this.
Well, I didn't drop out.
I don't mean drop out. I just mean, you decided not to attend college, is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
I don't mean drop out. I mean, you decide, with your option, you decided to go into this career and forego college. That's what I meant to say. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I did. I just already had a very good idea of what I wanted to do, and I knew that I could teach myself what I didn't already know as far as, marketing went. And I do all of my own music business. So all of my distribution, like I said, everything on the back end of music business, copyrights, royalties, all of that, I take care of myself. my mom has been very involved with my work, especially early on, because I was like, help me. I need, somebody else to kind of help me research these things. And if I didn't understand something, I was like, do you understand this? And so I definitely had her there to be like, we could, kind of put our brains together and figure things out. Now I'm more into a rhythm, I kind of know how long things are going to take. That's why, as you said, there's only so many hours in the day, and that is definitely something I've learned, especially when I'm getting ready for a release. I've kind of learned how much time I need to take care of all the back end business work before the release, so I allow myself enough time. But yeah, I just didn't necessarily see the value in it for myself to go to college. I, for one, didn't want to spend all that time. I just wanted to jump in and get started on pursuing the things that I wanted to do. And, the money as well is just a lot of money. And I wanted to put that towards my career. And like I said, for a lot of the things that I do, I didn't necessarily need to go to college for. I get private vocal coaching. I don't need to go to college to learn how to sing. And I already write my own music. I don't need to go to college for that. So it was just, maybe one day, I don't know, I'll go back. But at this point, I'm very happy with where I am.
Well, you're really quite you're really great at your craft, and you've self-taught. You've had other people to work with, but basically you do it yourself. I guess you work with your family, and you probably had you've had other collaborators. It sounds like. So that's really something, Emily.
Yeah, I've been very blessed by the people in my life. God has been very good in putting people in my path when I need them. Even if I don't work with them on a day-to-day basis, they were there and gave me the knowledge that I needed at that moment. And I'm very grateful for the people that He's put in my life.
Any performances that stand out that you'll never forget, that just totally unforgettable? When you're singing or performing, whatever you've done.
Certain things like first. Like I'll always remember my first wedding that I played for. My sister and I played violins at a wedding, and I'll never forget that. It was interesting and very exciting. I was 12 when I played at my first. Got hired to play at a wedding, and it was just sort of like, oh, I actually get paid to do what I love, and this is cool. And I definitely remember, the first time I was in a stage performance, or I remember, obviously Carnegie Hall and Sydney Opera House stand out as sort of momentous occasions. It's just a lot of, a lifetime of memories.
What about musical theater? Have you ever performed and actually been an actress in musicals at all? What do you think about musicals?
I have been in, I suppose, what you could call like one musical. I was in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at my community theater, and I've done some other things in shows, but not necessarily actual musical theater shows. But yeah, I was in that, and I loved it. I had the time of my life, and I was in the chorus, so it was a lot of running around changing characters, which I absolutely loved. I've always been, I really liked the behind the scenes stuff that happens, and so getting to build the sets and help out with costuming, and then get to play several different characters and all the costume changes, running around fun in the dark. It was a lot of fun.
Boy, that takes talent and it's fun. Any kind of musicals that you like, you remember, like West Side Story or Oklahoma, or there's all kinds of musicals, or The Sound of Music.
Mm-hmm.
You name it, there is. I've heard you sing that too. And you do a lot of you're doing a lot of covers. You seem to like doing like the Beatles or Sound of Music or The Good Old Summertime. There's just a few. Jingle Bell Rock, you did that yesterday. There's all kinds of different things that you've done.
Yeah, like I said, I enjoy many different genres of music, and doing the covers really allowed me to sort of build an audience before I was able to start recording my music professionally. And social media is a great thing for a lot of artists nowadays, to be able to connect with people and to put out things without going through, sort of independently, without going through a middleman, and just go straight to the people. And but I've had, different friends, like I was talking about, the different people that have been in my life and inspired different things, like you mentioned yesterday. And I did While My Guitar Gently Weeps and Jingle Bell Rock with a friend of mine who plays the electric guitar. And so kind of pivoting into a little more of the style that goes with, him playing the electric guitar and some of the music that he likes has been very different, than singing opera. And it's been a lot of fun to be able to create those with my friend and put those out there. And people seem to like them. So I'm hoping to do some more real soon, do those kind of in between some of my bigger projects.
Great. You're having fun. You're doing.
Yeah.
You're just moving right along, Emily. You want to be called Emily E, so that's why I keep.
Yeah. Believe it or not, there's several other Emily Finks, and one of them is my age and sings classical music. So I sort of had to differentiate myself, so I put my middle initial in there.
Oh, I see. I wondered about that. Okay. Well, there's a famous author by the name of Emily Dickinson. You probably heard of her.
Yeah.
Right. So you also do writing. You do writing. Now, do you like short story writing, or do you like fiction or nonfiction?
I enjoy writing fiction, especially, sort of along like fantasy or something like that. But short stories are just what I've had time to do. I'm currently working on a long form sort of novel style. I'm just writing one chapter at a time when I get the chance to. But for a long time, I just wrote short stories because that was what I had time to. But I actually started writing poems when I was very young, and I just started writing little poems. And I think that's maybe where my love of writing came from. And when I was maybe 8 or 9, I decided that I wanted to be an author. And I started writing a book that I never finished, unfortunately. But my life's just taken many turns as I grew up.
You never know. Maybe you'll do that someday. You never know.
I think that's sort of what led me to writing music eventually. My love for poetry and having written poems before I write a lot of my lyrics sort of stem from a very poem-esque beginning. A lot of them are actually poems that I just put to music.
That's great. So yeah, tell me about your songwriting now. How do you go about writing it? Putting the lyrics and putting the music together and everything. How do you go about doing that?
Most of my songs, the lyrics and the music sort of happen at the same time. I like to kind of craft. Well, I don't do it on purpose. It just sort of happens that way. Most of my songs have just sort of happened, either from something somebody said or an idea that I had or something that I've been thinking about. And I just will either sit down and write out the lyrics. Sometimes the lyrics have come first, but I have a cadence in my head, like a beat and the rhythm of how I want the words to flow. And then I come up with the melody later. But most of the time, about 80% of the time, the lyrics and the music I write at the same time. And either because I have the melody in my head as I'm writing it, or I'll just start singing a song. With the last song that I just released, maybe that's how it happened. I just started singing one day. I like going outside and singing in our backyard because it's nice and open, and being in nature is very inspirational to me.
I was going to ask you later on the show. I may as well ask you right now since you're talking about maybe. How did you come up with create such a beautiful and inspirational song? Maybe you did also a music video and you put the song out recently.
Yeah, I just released it on March 4th and the music video on March 5th. And I think it was sort of a culmination of a lot of things happening in my own life and just thoughts that I was having. I can't really pin it down to like one thing, like, oh, I thought this and I wrote a song. It was just sort of an idea that I had for a long time. And both sound-wise, I had an idea of what I wanted it to sound like. I'd been wanting to write a song that sounded kind of like that for a long time. And the theme of, I just started with the questions at the beginning of the song. What do I do now? Where do I go from here? How do I find my way? How do I face this fear of living in the future, of letting go of dreams? And I just started singing that. I was standing outside in my backyard, and just the words just came out, and I thought, oh, that's kind of pretty. And as the days went by, it just got stuck in my head, and I just kept singing it over and over again. And I had the idea of the chorus, as sort of an answer to those questions, and both, for the song and then also just answering them for myself. And I just kept singing it and I couldn't stop singing it. And I thought, well, I guess it's time that I write it down and make it an actual song. So I did that. I wrote the song out in my notation software, and then I created all of the instrumentation. I wrote out each of the instruments part, wrote the arrangement for it. And yeah, that was just kind of it. It just came out.
Well, that's beautiful. That really is beautiful. Yeah, we're gonna at the end of the show, we're gonna go ahead and we'll play this for our audience. Give everybody
Great.
a treat.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll be able to do that. Yeah. Anyway, that's great. So based upon your experiences, then you're able to do everything. Write the words, write the lyrics, do the score, put the music down, do the engineering and produce it, bring it out.
Yeah.
The music video and bring out the song. That's wonderful. That really is wonderful. And you've done other things too. I think you've done commercials and public service announcements too. Tell me about some of those experiences.
Yeah, I've done a couple of those. I got some acting training back in 2016, 2017, and was seriously considering, putting most of my time behind acting, and just didn't really, I had other things that I kind of wanted to pursue and started taking over my time, singing in particular. And, I started writing music in 2018, and which I hadn't expected to start doing. And so when I started doing that and writing my own music, and that took a lot of my time, the acting sort of took a back burner, and I've just been pursuing singing. But the public service announcement that you're referring to, I actually made back in 2015. I made that. I was hired to make that for a local organization called Drug Free Highlands to play in movie theaters, and I filmed and edited that for them. And then I've been in a couple of commercials for Disney, filming at Magic Kingdom. One of them, well, you were asking for stories, so here's one. I filmed a commercial with Disney at Magic Kingdom. This was back in early 2018 maybe, and it was an overnight shoot. So I got there, I was 17 at the time, so I was 17 at the time, so it was actually in 2017 that I did this. And so my mom was there because I was a minor, and we got there at like 9, 10 o'clock, and we were put, kind of in the waiting area until the first group of people had gotten finished. And so we were just kind of sitting around outside, and it was really cool to see the park so dark and empty, and they were cleaning everything, which I didn't know that they did. Maybe nobody else would be fascinated by this, but I was extremely fascinated because I've gone to Disney my whole life, and but nobody's ever allowed to be there after the park closes. And so to see them doing maintenance, and they were washing down everything. They were washing the buildings, they were washing the streets, and so there was just water everywhere. And our shoot actually got postponed by about an hour because they were cleaning and they wouldn't let the film crew go over there and film. So we had to wait until they got finished. But they had just finished washing the street, actually washing it. Like they had a big thing and they had people out there, and there was water everywhere. And the director told me he wanted me to walk from this point to this point. It was kind of at a diagonal angle from the sidewalk into the street, and I was wearing sandals on my feet, and right where in the middle of where he wanted me to walk through was this giant puddle of water. And so for about half an hour, I just walked back and forth carrying these balloons through a puddle of water, and my feet were soaking wet and my sandals were so wet. Thankfully, they were okay after that, but it was just like, well, you gotta do what you gotta do. And I just spent half an hour walking through a puddle.
That's funny. That's quite an experience. You won't ever forget that. No?
Yeah. I mean, it was cool. And then we went over to I don't know if anybody is familiar with how Magic Kingdom is set up, but there's a little area for Pinocchio, and there's a little restaurant there, and we had about maybe an hour downtime, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning at this point. And so they let all of us go over there, and there were like some benches outside, and the restaurant was completely empty, and they opened it up, and so we all went in there, and there were people laying down on chairs and on tables and on the benches outside, taking a nap for as long as they could until they came back and were ready for us to go to the next shoot. So I went there again, and I was like, yep, I took a nap on that bench.
Well, they had to get enough rest so they could be okay for the shoot, right?
Yeah.
Fresh. So what kind of a commercial would you describe the kind of commercial it was at Disney?
It was just like a promo type of commercial that I don't know if it played on television. I know I saw it later, several months later on YouTube. It was just very short, promotional for, I think, a new show that they were going to be doing at the Magic Kingdom, a new fireworks show that they were doing.
Well, that must have been neat. That must have been really nifty, fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah. Great.
Have you ever had a performance now that you tried so hard for it to work? It's called Murphy's Law, I guess. Or Emily's Law. You tried very hard. You're very trying, right? But for some reason, it didn't quite work the way you wanted it to. And if that's the case, how did you handle something like that?
I mean, I've definitely had things go wrong at performances. Thankfully, nothing major during a performance, like out on stage that messed up a performance. But there's definitely been things that go wrong, playing at weddings. I can think of one time. I was playing with an ensemble. We were a string ensemble. There were 5 of us, and so it was 2 violins, a viola, cello, and bass. And we were playing at a wedding. And they asked us, we were playing, I think they were having communion, and we were told that they wanted us to play for communion. And they said, it should take between like maybe 5 minutes. Well, okay, we've got a song that we can stretch to that length. And so we had it all planned out, in our rehearsal, how long it was going to be. And we are playing, and we all, are getting near the end of the song, and we're looking at our first violin, who's our leader, and she's like, and so we just all keep playing, and we ended up playing for that communion for close to 15 minutes, which was about 3 times as long as we had planned. And we just kept looking at each other and just trying to follow. And at that point, we had been playing together for several years, so we were very experienced in following each other. But afterwards, we just all had the biggest laugh about it, because it was kind of stressful in the moment, because you don't want the music to end, or we did switch songs at one point, but we didn't have another song prepared, so we had 2 songs that we played for 15 minutes. Wow. And which, I don't know if you can imagine, most songs only last somewhere between 3 to 4, so we were stretching the one to make it 5, so 2 songs for 15 minutes. And they had more people at the wedding than they had anticipated, and so it took longer for communion than they had anticipated. And it was just one of those things that's like, that was stressful, but we made it through it, and I don't think anybody knew that, we were trying to make that work.
Wow. So you had your own private joke with that thing. You were able to pull it off, but only you knew. The audience did.
Well, and that's you learn as performers. I say performance is about 50% rehearsal time and practice to be the best that you can, and then it's 50% faking it, because things inevitably always go wrong on stage. There's always things that happen that are just out of your control. And every single performance I've done has had at least one thing that whether it's that you mess up, I've forgotten the lyrics when I'm singing on more than one occasion.
That's what I'm going to ask you.
You just learn how to handle it. It's kind of more difficult when you forget the lyrics, but most audiences are very forgiving if you just kind of laugh it off. But, there's just always things that go wrong, and learning to smooth it over so that the audience doesn't know, if at all possible, is about 50% of doing a performance.
So what you're saying is you got to fake it to make it. You got to go over and act like nothing happened, I guess.
Yeah, that's where that acting experience comes in very handy.
Right. I'm sure I was going to ask, too, is your voice ever cracked in the middle of a performance?
Definitely, yeah. And it's been caught on video many times as well. So that's always very nice when it's going to live forever.
I guess it helps to have a healthy sense of humor, which you obviously have, too.
Yes, yeah.
You got to learn to laugh at yourself.
Yeah, maybe I think perhaps that's why I prefer live performances so much, because the audience won't pick up on a lot of those things unless, they have a very good ear or they're intently listening. But most people won't pick up on mistakes, especially if you just keep on going or, try and smooth it over. But when it's on video and people can go back and watch it 100 times or more, it's going to live forever. It's definitely a little bit more daunting.
That's interesting. And now, especially in this business entertainment, there's always rejection and everything. Has everything always gone smoothly for you, or you ever had any rejecting situations? And if you did, how did you handle that?
Oh, I've been rejected many times. Auditions that I didn't make. Things that I've put in for and haven't gotten. So it's, my being a Christian and trying to trust God with my life and my career, I think helps me the most, because I just put it in his hands. I pray about it and I say, if I'm going to be auditioning for something or if I'm going to be performing somewhere, I pray about it and say, let it be your will. If I'm going to get this job, if I'm going to do good in this audition, not saying that it's his fault if I don't get it or, if I mess up, but, just letting it, if I do the best that I can physically, then putting the rest of it into his hands and saying, you know what, now you can take it, and whatever happens, I trust that it's your will and that it's going to be the best for me. And many times I've been rejected only to, have something better come along later. Maybe it's not instantly, sometimes it's months later, years later, but I know that if I had done that, I wouldn't have gotten here. And so just sort of understanding that there's a bigger picture and trusting that it's out of my hands, as long as I'm doing my part and doing the best that I can, just trusting that God will get me to where he wants me to be, even if it's not necessarily how I think I should get there.
So everything's going to work out, even if one door closes, another door can open, or many other
Exactly.
doors.
Yeah.
You have a good philosophy. You do. Definitely. To live by.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You live by it, along with a nice, smile there and the talent. Now, there's always a thing about, I've heard of opera singers. Some opera singers are so strong, their voices, they've been able to actually, with their voice, crack a glass. Have you ever experienced that or seen anybody crack a glass with their voice?
I've not seen it done in person, but, definitely in movies, videos. I have never done it. If I understand the science behind it, I don't think my voice actually could. I believe that depending on the glass, there's different frequencies that break different types of glass, different thicknesses. But I think my voice is too high. It's because my voice is loudest when I'm high. It's not as loud when I'm, on lower notes. I don't think that it's physically possible for me to break glass, although I suppose it could happen. It's never happened, which I'm grateful for.
I see. Okay. Now you've also, if you're so versatile and talented, you've also dabbled in I understand you've also, from what I'm doing research on, you've been a model also. Tell me what kind of modeling? Is it commercial or is it fashion? And
I don't meet the requirements to be a fashion model, although I wish that I could be a fashion model at my size, but I'm not tall enough. But I technically am in the category of being a commercial or lifestyle model. I've not had the opportunity to do any of it, as for hire. But I've been trained in modeling and I utilize that experience, because I have to model for pictures all the time for myself, for covers of albums and things like that. So I definitely utilize my modeling training a lot, just for myself, for my business, as opposed to for somebody else's.
Oh, I see. So they require a lot of discipline to be able to get photographed for many hours.
It does. Yeah. It's very tiring. I enjoy it a lot. My sister does most of my photography for me. So it's a great time for us. And she's very excellent at what she does. So she makes it easy, but definitely holding poses for a lot of the photography that I like to do, it's a lot of having to hold a pose. And so my face muscles, especially, if I'm smiling, they get worked very hard. And my face is sore afterwards, but, trying to, hold different poses and hold a certain look on your face is definitely can be tricky at times.
I see. Too much smiling, but I guess the better to smile than frown or be angry. Yeah. But I guess eventually, it might be a little painful to smile too much.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, and I don't realize sometimes, if I'm holding a look for a certain amount of time, and she's like, no, go back to the look you had before. And I'm like, I haven't moved. And she's like, you've done something, because that's not the look that you had on your face before. Your muscles sort of start to relax, and it's like, I need a break. Sort of.
Any particular fashions that you like to model at all in particular?
Well, a lot of my inspiration for a lot of my own fashion comes from sort of 1920s, 1930s style. I take a little bit from, some of the later decades, but I definitely lean more towards somewhere between the 20s and 40s as far as style goes, and I collect a lot of vintage pieces to use. But as far as a style for a lot of my pictures, I like to look at photo plates and magazines from the 1930s and 40s, some of the old actresses, the Hollywood actresses, from like the silent films and stuff like that, and utilize some of their poses.
Some of the greats, like maybe Marilyn Monroe, some of those type of people, Jane Mansfield.
Yeah.
There's a lot of greats. Maybe Van Doren.
Yeah.
The pinup girls are Betty Grable, and there's all kinds.
Oh yeah.
Jane Russell.
Yeah. I like looking at some. There were some very beautiful hand painted like postcards from the late 1800s. If you look at the cover for In the Good Old Summertime, that was inspired by some of the hand painted postcards from the late 1800s.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That was beautifully done. Yeah, you were in a picnic. It's like you're just waltzing along and singing that song.
Yeah.
Have a grand old time.
Oh yes. I make it a point to try and have fun when I'm doing things like that. It's very easy to get wrapped up in the work because, especially, in directing, making a music video, I'm in front of the camera, but I'm also directing it. My sister does the videography for me, so she's behind the camera, and she does a fair bit of directing, because she can see, what the camera's looking at and the framing. But it's my ideas that she's bringing to life, and so having to direct, like, okay, now I want this shot to look like this, and we're going to do this shot over there, and trying to explain that. It's very easy to get caught up in all the work of that. So I like to have, some people along that kind of remind me to laugh and have fun with it too.
So you work with your sister a lot, mainly. You're not talking about a film crew of other people, right? It's mainly you and your sister doing the directing.
Yeah, I like to have at least 3 people there when I'm shooting, because there's a lot of equipment, and my sister, she's solely in charge of the camera and doing the filming. And so my mom is normally there, and she's taking care of a lot of the equipment or filming a lot of behind the scenes footage. And then I like to have somebody else there to help with any other setup that needs to happen, carrying things and helping to set up shots. So I like to have 3 people there if at all possible, but there's definitely been shoots where it's just my sister and my mom, or like in Alexander's Ragtime Band, I shot that myself. So it was just me and the camera.
That's neat. So you do, you sang yesterday. You also sang You're a Grand Old Flag. Remember that?
You're a Grand Old Flag.
Yeah. Remember that?
Oh, I know the song. Yes, I don't remember what video that you're talking about.
Yeah, but you did sing that in one of your music videos. You also sang Star Spangled Banner. Oh, you did several patriotic.
Yes, I love doing the patriotic songs.
Right, and then that one from it's a certain song. It's like a sad song, a funeral song. I'm trying to think of the name of it now. What is this one?
Good Night, Irene?
No, Good Night, Irene. Yeah, well, Good Night, Irene. How can I forget that? That was a friend of mine, unfortunately, that passed was named Irene. Oh yeah, that was something. But there was another one, Amazing Grace. That's the one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing Grace is definitely a favorite. My sister and I, anytime we did performances, and for about 13 years, we had a ministry that we played at some local nursing homes. At least twice a month, we were playing at one nursing home in particular, and then any others that we could fit in there. We did that for about 13 years, and we always ended every single performance with Amazing Grace. And we still do that. You know, many performances that we do, we will end with Amazing Grace.
And these experiences, now, do you remember any times where you got standing ovations and big applause and everything?
I do, but not specifically. When I'm performing on stage, the end of any type of performance, there's normally quite a rush and a lot of release of sort of anxiety after, you know, performing, especially if it was a hard song or something. And I don't think about the audience too much. You know, a lot of times I don't even hear the applause. It's something that I've tried to get better at, and sort of being present in the moment at the end of performances to soak that all in. But there's a lot that I don't remember from the ends of performances. I do know I've gotten standing ovations before, but I couldn't tell you specifically what.
I see. That brings to mind performance anxiety. Have you ever had to deal with that in any of your performances? And if you did, how did you handle it? No?
A little bit. I get nervous before every performance. And I heard somebody say one time, and I've passed this on to my own students, you know, when they get nervous, that it's okay to be nervous before a performance. You don't want to be scared, but it's okay to be nervous, because when you're nervous, that shows that you care about what you're doing, because you want to do a good job. And so learning how to channel that nervousness, though, is sort of the trick, because you don't want your nerves to turn into fear. Thankfully, I've never had that happen, because once I do start performing, I am in my happy spot, and I sort of forget all of that, and I just go along with the music, and it calms me down a lot. But definitely some ways that I help with the nervousness is praying. That helps a great deal in sort of recentering my mind on what's important, which is making music to glorify God, and, you know, asking for his peace, which he will always give when you ask for it. And so that's definitely one thing that helps me with any type of anxiety in a performance. And then just remembering to breathe, because when I get nervous, I sort of start taking shallow breaths, and that's not good for a singer. So just reminding myself to breathe, and, you know, sort of, I try to take, if I'm nervous, I notice myself taking shallow breaths, then I try to take 10 deep breaths. And by that point, I'm normally calmed down quite a bit.
I see. Well, you do your best. That's all anyone can ask.
And that's it exactly. You know, just after so many years of performing, I've really learned that audiences are very forgiving, and you as the performer are going to care more about your mistakes than they are. And just knowing that you did your absolute best, and reminding yourself that, you know what, I prepared for this as well as I could, and I got up there and I did my very best. If things happened, then you know what, it's okay. If the audience seemed to enjoy it and you were doing it for all the right reasons, then there's no need to worry about, you know, what happened. You can just sort of leave that behind, leave that, you know, on stage where it happened, and then move towards the next thing.
Emily, everything, okay, I know there's times have been up and times have been down. Is there a worse performance that you've ever had that you can remember, and even though you remember it, you wish it wouldn't have happened at all? I know you spoke about some embarrassing experiences, but has there been a worse performance out of all the different ones? And how did you deal with that, if there was? How did you handle it?
I know that there definitely has. And I can't think of a specific one at the moment, but I know that there has, because I was just thinking about it the other day. And here goes my mind again, not being able to remember things. But okay. No, there definitely has been worse performances that just sort of creep back into my mind. And I go, man, you know, that wasn't my best moment. But can't think of it at the moment.
Okay, well, maybe it'll come back. Okay, very, very good. Anyway, yeah, Emily. Now, out of all your, now you wear, I guess you wear many hats. Out of all the different things you do, whether it be producing, directing, writing, songwriting, composing, singing, doing commercials, doing music videos, out of all the different, and you doing modeling, is there anything, any one favorite, or you just like them all pretty much alike?
I do like them all a great deal, but definitely singing is my passion. It's what I feel called to, at least at the moment. That could change. There's definitely been other things that I've felt very passionate about growing up throughout my life. And but for the past about 7 years, this is what I've just been felt called to. And it's been what I've been very passionate about. So definitely singing is my favorite. But I do enjoy, I enjoy it best, though, I think, when I can put everything together. And that's what I do. I call myself a creative entrepreneur, and it's just sort of a catch-all for everything that I do. And I just love being able to utilize every aspect of my creativity to create something.
Well, it's almost like, it sounds like you're putting together almost like a recipe.
Yeah.
Separate recipe for a creative endeavor with all the things that you do.
Yep.
And you want to make it work. You want to make it a work of art.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think of every project that I do as a work of art, and it's really been something that I have found takes all of the skills that I have to create that piece of art. And I feel very blessed that I learned how to do a lot of these things as I was growing up. Like I said, I've had many passions growing up, and started out, with writing, and then it changed. And I even got interested in science for a little while. I wanted to be a veterinarian, but that did not work out. But getting into art and drawing, and then into music, obviously, has always been there. And then getting into acting and performance, and then learning modeling on top of it, and just everything. I loved making films when I was younger. With all of my cousins, we would have our little video cameras out, and we'd write and film movies. And I loved anything that had to do with performance and creating things like that. Just always have.
And when it comes to films, what kind of films do you prefer? You prefer drama, comedy, science fiction, scary?
That's a tough question.
You're
asking me the very tough questions now. You're asking me to pick favorites, and I'm terrible at picking favorites. But I don't know. I prefer fantasy movies quite a lot, and I like adventure movies, but I definitely like dramas and comedies too. It sort of just depends on the day and what mood I'm in. But
you like drama, you like comedy, okay. Yeah. Science fiction, it's a little bit of everything.
A little bit of science fiction, yeah.
That's great. That's great. So you're very well-rounded, Emily. Yeah. Well, let me ask you. If you had to do anything over again in your life and career, would you do anything differently, Emily?
Oh, I'm sure there'd be some, things that, talking about, not your finest moments on stage, or, things that I wish I had prepared better for or done a little differently, but they're all small in the scheme of things. Overall, there's really nothing that I would choose to change. I'm very happy. Everything, I try and think that everything happens for a reason, that especially when I've put all my trust and my faith in God to lead me, and putting that in his hands sort of takes a lot of burden off of myself, and just trusting that, if something's going to happen, that maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe God has something better planned. And I'm not anywhere close to where I thought that I would be, by this age, doing the things that I'm doing. But I am so thrilled to be here, and the prospect of where I'm going. And I'm very grateful that God has led me here, even though, 5 years ago, if I had known that this is where I was going to be, I probably would have said, no, I don't want to do that. But here I am, and because it's been one step at a time, and so many things that I have done, I haven't done, even if I wish I'd done some things differently, wouldn't have gotten me to where I am today. So overall, it's what anything that I would have wanted to change has made me and my career what it is today. So no, I don't think I'd change anything.
You wouldn't change it. You're content. You're a happy camper. You're very happy.
Yeah.
You have, Emily E. Fink, you have had and continue to have a very blazing and amazing, great and wonderful life, a trailblazer in doing what you're doing. And I feel like, you're like a prodigy, and I feel that you're a genius. I mean, you're at such a young age that to be able to do so many things. A lot of people can't do anything. They do things, but not in comparison to what you told me when I've done research. I'm not depressed, but I'm very impressed by what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate your kind words. Thank you.
That's how I feel. That's the kind of vibes that I get from talking to you and from reading about you and listening to your music too. It's so soothing and calming when I'm here. I'm reading research, and while I'm doing that, I'm listening to your different songs or your music videos that you're doing. Very relaxing.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have any present projects at all, Emily E?
I do. It's probably the big one is that I'm about to record an easy listening album. It'll be the first album that I have released, and I plan to release it on CD, and I also hope to get it pressed on vinyl, and also, it'll be available digitally, but that is something that I should be recording in the studio in a few months, and then it should come out in the fall. So that's the next big project. Aside from that, just a couple of shows and recitals to do later in the fall as well, sort of to promote the album. But so that's the next big thing that I'm working on.
You're going to do a CD and an extended play? That's what you're going to do?
No, it should be a full album. Yeah, about between 12 and 14 songs.
Great. That's great. Yeah. Look for that. Any future dream projects, Emily, that you haven't done that you're really thinking about doing?
I've always wanted to write and star in either a musical or an opera, and that's definitely something that is on my list to do. I don't know how soon that can happen, so it's probably one of those sort of like way further down the road things. And also to go on tour. That's something that I'm hoping happens a little sooner in the next couple of years maybe, but I'd love to go on tour and do shows.
That's one of the things I wanted to ask you too, talking about tours. Did you go on any tours in your life? And if you did, were the most outstanding venues that you remember? Where have you traveled?
No, unfortunately, something always happened. I was going to do a tour with a group that I was in, and that didn't work out. And before the pandemic happened, I had started to plan a tour, and obviously that didn't happen. So I just decided to pursue recording music and get some music out there before I go on tour.
I see. Okay. Yeah. And now, if anybody wants to find out more about you, Emily E. Fink, how would they go about finding out? Tell me about the social media, different links that you have where people can find out more about you.
I have my website, and that would probably be the best way to, find some different things. But I'm also on YouTube. My channel name is Emily E. Fink. I'm on Facebook as Emily E. Fink, and Instagram, my handle is Emily_E_Fink. And by the way, Fink has an E at the end, Finke, just in case anybody was wondering. My website is emilyefink.com. And then on all of the streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. I don't know if anybody still has Google Play, but all the things like that. You can find my music under Emily E. Fink. You're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, you have your own YouTube channel, right? Yes. Yeah. That's great. You're all over the place. How can people not find you? That's what I've been wondering. If they can, there's something wrong with them, right? Okay. Anyway, Emily E. Fink, as we get ready to wrap, what I'm going to do, it's going to be a treat instead of a treatment for all of our fans. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to present this song written by this most talented and gifted young lady here. Her brand new single. It's called Maybe. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. No, actually the real song is Maybe. And so let's all have a blazing hot fun time. Kick back and relax and listen to this wonderful, beautiful new song of Emily E. Fink. The song is called Maybe. What do I do now? Where do I go from here? How do I find
I face this fear of living in the future, of letting go of dreams. Maybe somewhere there's a life for me to lead. Maybe I can find another song to sing. Maybe dreams don't come true. Maybe sometimes they do. Maybe dreams aren't always what they seem. So I'll say a prayer, look to the northern star. If I just believe I can get that far, I'll never look behind me. I'm letting go of the past. Maybe somewhere there's a life for me to lead. Maybe I can find another song to sing. Maybe dreams don't come true. Maybe sometimes they do. Maybe dreams aren't always what they seem. When we look at the sun, do we really see the sun? When we look at our dreams, what do we see? Are dreams only dreams? Are they real or make-believe? Are dreams only real in our dreams? Maybe somewhere there's a life for me to lead. Maybe I can find another song to sing. Maybe dreams don't come true. Maybe sometimes they do. Just not how we dream they do. Maybe dreams don't come true. Maybe sometimes they do. Just not how we dream they do.
Bravo, bravo, Emily E. Fink. Yeah,
Thank
it's really been a pleasure, Emily E. Fink. You have been such a great guest. I want to thank you for being such an inspiring and entertaining and most interesting guest. You love your craft. You put your mind, body, heart, and soul into everything you do. And the time has gone by fast, and it's certainly been a pleasure, Emily E. Fink.
It's been my pleasure as well. Thank you so much for having me here. I've enjoyed it immensely.
It's my pleasure. I do my best to to prepare on all my shows, and I find you most inspirational, most entertaining.
Well, thank
So
you.
anyway, in wrapping the show up, the Amazing Original Johnny Blaze Show with Emily E. Fink, I just want to say to all my fans and friends, always keep a smile on your face and a song in your heart. Until next time, happy trails and blaze out.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to be a guest on an entertainment talk show, please send us an email to amazingoriginaljbshow@gmail.com. And remember, every one of our guests will receive a complimentary DVD of their appearance on the show. Every one of our shows gets at least 3,000 views on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Amazing Original Johnny Blaze. And now, The Amazing Original Johnny Blaze has just left the building. Good night, and God bless. Thank you.